Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Kalbard's Corner for this week's Coffee with Cal. I am Lord Kalbardr Geiler, Commander of the Meridian Cross, Commander of the Argent Comet, Commander of the Argent Lamp, Commander of the Falcon's Faith, and Reaper, coming to you live, as always, from the Barony of the Osprey on the southern coast of Meridies. And this is my cat, who's going to be in the way the entire time. Oh, today I am joined by what amazing person, a good friend of mine, and I will point out, the first guest I ever had on Kalbard's Corner way back, almost like at the start of the pandemic. I'm going to put this up. Ouyang Yingzhao Taishi.
Yes, you got it! Yay!
Okay. It's like I get your first name right. The second, your last name,
my surname,
surname always messes me up. And it's because Chinese is hard. So
it's okay. You got it right.
Now you have your new fancy title on the end of it. So tell us, give us your introduction. Who are you?
Sure. I am Ouyang Yingzhao Taishi, and I live in the Shire of Andania, which is Huntsville.
Another name that's hard to pronounce.
Yes, it's Huntsville, the place in Meridies where the rockets are.
And the future home of Space Force, right?
Hopefully, we'll see.
What I heard.
I don't know. We'll find out. We're excited that it may be coming here. So anyway, I've lived in Meridies for 5 years. I want to say time has no meaning, and I've been in the SCA for longer than that. And again, time. I think it's close to 10 years. So yeah. I'm really excited to be here. This is fun, and thank you for the reminder that I was amongst the first.
Yeah, no. So you were. I was thinking about that yesterday. I was like,
hold on.
It's Zippy.
You gotta go find out. Oh, you got a ball. I'm so sorry.
For people watching, that is the single cutest toddler I've ever met. That is Zip, or she is amazing. If you've ever seen her, it's just the most adorable thing.
You bounced the ball. Okay, can you go close the door?
So, all right. So I was looking at earlier because I was like, I was pretty sure that Ouyang was one of the first because we did the virtual game symposium last April, just after pandemic started. I was supposed to run an event called Blood and Roses here in Osprey, and they got canceled. It was going to be games themed. I was super excited. And then we're like, well, I guess we're going to do this virtually. So we did it virtually. And you and I we did Go. And it was actually the first video I posted on YouTube. So
we did Go and we did Pitch Pot. Yeah.
So the Pitch Pot was on Friday and Go, but Go was on Tuesday. And that's why we ended up going Go early, is because you're going to do the Pitch Pot one later. So we ended up, you ended up being the first. So.
Okay. Bye-bye, Zippy.
Bye, Zippy.
Close the door. Okay, sorry.
It's okay. No, I expected her to pop in. If she didn't, I was going to be upset. All right, so since today's show is coffee themed, we have to talk about our coffee and our amazing mugs. So I am drinking the Black Gold from 1850 Folgers collection. It is amazing. It is literally like it's like a black warm hug. So it's the best. And my cup is the amazing Feed the Ravens. Given to me my Westie besties. So this is an awesome little cup. So I have an actual period mug to drink out of now. I'm so excited. So what are you drinking?
I am drinking 8 o'clock, which is one of my favorite brands of coffee. This is their Vermont. The
Vermont Maple Bourbon.
Vermont Maple Bourbon.
Yeah.
But I am a person who puts things in my coffee, so it tastes like my coffee because I put stuff in it. And I'm drinking it out of this lovely mug that is signed by Kim Fritz, I think, if I'm reading that correctly. But what I love about this mug is that my very best friend and one of my leg wives, Katarina in North Shield, got this mug for me. And she got it for me, I don't know how far ahead of me even being announced. It sat on a shelf in her house and she threw vibes at it every time she passed it, which is why it has such special meaning to me, because this is my vibes cup.
That's awesome. So so apparently that's a thing people do. I didn't realize this until recently, that people buy stuff like before they're announced or like sort of on their path. Like they see a thing that speaks to them that's in their oh, here's a Laurel wreath thing I want to buy. They'll buy it and just stick it away somewhere. I didn't know that. So I found this out. I was talking to Song Myung-soo about her elevation stuff. She apparently has had her elevation like jewel, like her hairpins, or these are hairpins or her jewelry one for like 3 years.
Yeah, no, the elevation chest thing is a thing. So like Mistress Anna, and I'm not going to try to say her whole name, but Mistress Anna had all her elevation fabric, you know, in a tote. Like when it comes time, this is and I didn't because I honestly was operating under the delusion, I guess, that I was still far enough out that I didn't need to worry about that.
You were wrong.
I've been told, but I just loved that because again, she's one of my best friends, and the fact that she bought it for me and she didn't tell me about it, you know, obviously, and I've been to her house and seen it and didn't even think about it, you know.
Oh, she had it just sitting out at her house?
She had it on a shelf in her house, and like so what she would, it's one of those weird like magic isn't magic, but it's like the intentions you put into the world kind of thing. And you know, she would see it and she would just, you know, put that like, you know what, I'm just gonna put those good vibes out there and just hope and wish, and you know, what can I do to help Ouyang on her path, you know, and how can I support her as a friend, and etc. And I just love that. I love that so much.
Yeah, that's amazing. Gifts like that make like the cup could be the ugliest, like just goofiest cup ever, but because it has that provenance, that story behind it, it is now the best cup ever. That's
exactly. Yeah, and I think she probably picked it up. I mean, it's a standard Laurel cup, and I'm sure she picked it up at like Penzic or Lily's or something. But it clearly
called your name, and she thought of you. That's what you got to do. Yeah. Okay. All right, so let's talk. So you were recently. I say recently. It's been months now, but you were since COVID, you were elevated to the Order of the Laurel. Which congratulations again on that, by the way, well deserved. So for those watching, Ouyang does Tang Dynasty, 8th century Tang Dynasty. And is just a fabulous person and a wealth of knowledge on that subject, and many others. So you have your broken TARDIS concept of persona. So Ouyang and I have had this discussion a lot, where she doesn't have a persona; she just has a focus, because her persona often will shift to whatever her focus is, and her focus happens to be have stuck for a bit now.
Yeah, and as Mistress Wu is fond of saying, my TARDIS, my Pagardis.
Yeah, Pagardis. Yeah.
My Pagardis is stuck. It's broken, and so I'm stuck in Tang Dynasty China.
You'll get out eventually. It's fine. We'll shift a little further back. You know.
Sometimes.
I mean, it's I think once you find a passion, a thing you want to work on, like, you know, so you may not have the full developed persona story, and like, I think that's something the SCA is getting away from, honestly. I know a lot of people out west I've talked to have they have their, you know, sort of focus of thing they work on, but they have no persona story. Yeah. And it's something Meridies does a little bit here and there, like Hanya. Like Hanya is somebody who has like a fully developed persona story, and like she has, when she goes to an event, like she has the why am I at this event? Why am I dealing with these people? Like it's a developed story.
That's kind of like personal world building. Yeah. Is a totally different sort of brain space and skill. Like there's a gentleman who I do not remember what kingdom he's in. I do not remember his name, but he plays a spy master.
Oh, cool.
Like, that's his thing.
Right.
And he has gone so far down into that research. It is amazing. It is just like, it is chef's kiss. It is, it's beautiful. But but that's the effort and the time and the passion that he's put into that. I am way too scatterbrained, and there's way too much awesome stuff out there. So the whole reason why I even started doing Tang Dynasty stuff, because I initially started doing sort of just the very vague 14th-ish century, you know, Western
medieval.
Medieval. I mean, I was wearing, you know, coats, and I had like one apron dress that was My Little Pony themed. Do you know about that?
I don't. I didn't know about that.
My very first Penzic, I made an apron dress for that Penzic, and that was purple. It was my Twilight Sparkle apron dress, and Katarina did a Pinkie Pie with cupcakes on it, and Gwen, the other leg wife, did Rainbow Dash. So there's a picture of us adorned with glow sticks because it's Penzic. There's 3 My Little Pony. Yeah, it was great. And actually, the first time that we did the first time I wore Tong at an event, was when I think that was when Gwen actually was elevated to the Order of the Laurel. We wore Tang Dynasty My Little Pony.
That's amazing. I
love subtle SCA cosplay. Right. It just makes me happy. Anyway, the whole reason why I got into Tang Dynasty was I had this idea in my head called the Epic Timey-Wimey Garb Project, where I was going to, for every century that the SCA, has in it, because that's debatable as far as when it starts, I was going to do as skin out as possible with accessories, an outfit. So 6th through 16th, that was the plan. And I had just done Arnigan, but I had picked Arnigan for I think for 6th, I think it's 6th. And I was bouncing around. I had it all laid out what I was going to do. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to start, because I just did an Arnigan, I'm going to start with 8th. And I had picked China because, to my knowledge, nobody did China.
Right.
8th century Chinese stuff, Tang Dynasty, looked awesome. I want to know more about this. And I haven't left because my Pagardis is stuck.
It's like when you fall in love with something, you have to you just stick with it, and you do it well, I think, and that's and like I said, this is totally off topic, but I guess it's on topic for your Laurel stuff. So you do it well enough that it's not presumptive, and you know what you're talking about, and you present it in a way that is super educational, and I appreciate that. Like it's very easy, especially to do the extra European cultures where it's where it becomes presumptive and it becomes costumey, and there are a couple talks out there on the DEI channels about appropriation and all that, and it's super easy as us white folk to be appropriative in those cultures, but I think you do it well in a way that is not appropriative.
Well, and it's there's a lot of effort that goes into that, and it's one of those I need to know. And even before I started, it was like, okay, I need to make sure I'm doing this from a position that's not appropriative, so I know what's happening. I know as much as possible as I can about the women who wore these things, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, so that I didn't fall down that hole.
Right.
But I'm glad that it comes across, that it comes across the right way. It comes across as intention. I'm still not comfortable wearing it to demos.
Right.
And that's on my own personal journey that I got to go on. So I will occasionally scare people and show up in 14th century English, and they don't know what to do with me. Like, who's that person? Oh, goodness. I went to a Magna Fair dressed in 14th century, and because Thorkatla was going to try out new, hair goo on me. And I was like, I got to wear this so you can do the hair goo. And pulled up with Zippy, pulled up next to Baron William, Master William, and who's a friend of mine, and I just pulled up and dropped her there to go do something else. And he was like, who is this new person who just has randomly entrusted me with their small child?
What's bad is he was so confused he didn't recognize Zippy. That's the thing. It's like,
well, she was still little. She was just a year old. I mean, she was not as zippy as she is now. But yeah, anyway.
All right, so let's get into the topic. We're actually already getting questions, and we've been called out. Apparently, we have a lot of inside jokes.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. No, you're correct. Ouyang and I have known each other long enough now, and actually, we haven't known each other that terribly long, but we've had lots of hours long conversations. You actually via YouTube and things, StreamYard and stuff, while we've been or Zoom. You and I have talked a lot about things, so we are kindred spirits. All right, so let's talk about your elevation. Or actually, let's go back to the announcement. All right, so I think you were one of the first virtually announced, if I'm not mistaken. I think you were the first virtually announced.
Well, no, there was somebody announced in that same court along with me.
Okay.
And I'm terrible at names, and I don't remember who it was. But I think it was another one of the golf course champions. Because we were pulled into that court because we were the golf course champions.
Right.
Golf course didn't happen, and each of us had made these little videos, and so they were doing this thank you and pulled us up all on the screen together. And I knew something was up, but I wasn't sure what, because Una, my Laurel, was also in that court, and I was just like, "What's Una doing here? What business does Una have in court?" And so I was just like, I'm not gonna, whatever, it's probably nothing. You tell yourself that a lot when you're on your journey. When you get those little sense of suspicions, you're like, it's probably nothing, don't overthink it. Because when you do overthink it and then nothing happens, that letdown hurts.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? It's not a big hurt, but it's enough, that it's like, ugh. And again, that's we were talking before stream started of the sort of millennial gifted child mentality and how that screws you up. So I was telling myself, it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. It's just something else. It probably has nothing to do with you, you know, et cetera, et cetera. So when they didn't like kick me out, you know, they just kept me in the Zoom. And it was the first virtual court that I had like been a part of. So I wasn't sure what the protocol was. I assumed that once my part was done, they were going to be like, okay, you can leave now, bye. But they didn't. I was just like, all right, whatever, I'm just gonna hang out. And then they announced it, and I was just completely, like I said, I didn't think I was anywhere near that part of my journey. You know, like I thought I was still, oh goodness, at least 2 or 3 years out. You know, I knew I was on that path. I mean, obviously, it was my path, but yeah, I was completely gobsmacked, completely humbled, excited, but also just like, oh. And then of course, on top of all of the other pandemic stress, it was middle of May, like May 17th, I think. So, you know, we'd already been in lockdown for several months. And so it was just very like, here, have this thing, and what you gonna do with it? You know? So,
here's a pile of stress for you. Thanks. Yeah.
So I didn't think about it for, like, I did some sketching on like what I wanted my outfit, to look like. But I didn't really do any big planning for a while, because I was just like, this is the thing that I can't focus on. It's really cool, but I'm gonna not focus on it. Because initially I didn't know if I wanted to wait and have an in-person elevation, or if I wanted to do an online one. And there were people who had been announced, like Mistress Veronica had been announced at the last like in-person event that Meridia's had, and she hadn't been elevated yet. So it's just like, I don't want to preempt her. Like, I didn't know if that was going to be a problem, you know. So
because that does change precedence. That's actually, because she should have been Laurel before you, but actually ended up being Laurel after you because of that. So and that's the thing, is I had lots of conversations with lots of people, both here in Meridia's. I had a long conversation with, I hope I'm saying her name right, Mistress Elizabeth, who's now in Germany. She got elevated before, you know, they moved. I think she was in Atlanta. I had a couple other conversations with people who had gotten Laureled right before lockdown. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. I did not know what I wanted to do. My experience with other people's elevations had always been very tangential. You know, I would do scrolls, or I would, you know, help write scroll text. I mean, I never was involved with, you know, I'm going to make the garb for this person, or I'm going to help, you know, herd the cats. I never made vigil food. You know, I was always very, very tangential. And then obviously seeing it in court as a spectator, I knew that there were things that I wanted from that perspective, you know, what kind of speakers I wanted, how I wanted admonition scope. And of course, that was all based on like me going into the Chinese focus. So, you know, and I knew that once I started that, I was like, okay, I can't have a Western European ceremony if I'm standing there in Tang Dynasty clothing. Like that disconnect I knew wasn't going to go. So I didn't know what I wanted to do. I had a lovely conversation with Baron Master William again, and it was completely unsolicited. Like, I had posted something about how I'm still thinking about it. I don't know what I'm going to do, you know, just to sort of let people know what was going on. And he randomly messaged me. And at first I was like, oh no, unsolicited advice. Oh no. Like, I was always like, my guard immediately went up. And, you know, and Master William's a friend of mine, but he said that an honor delayed is an honor denied. And that was like, okay, you know what? Good point. You know? And that was in August, I think. And that really kind of solidified that, no, I need to just do this. I need to figure out how to make it work and do it. And Mistress Elizabeth had a lot of really great advice too. You know, hers being, I think, one of the first virtual elevations in the known world. I don't know if she was the first, but one of the first. Yeah, one of the early ones.
Yeah. So started trying to get stuff done, prepped. I had, you know, lovely people who, you know, just via virtue of, you know, the United States Postal Service, help make things, dye fabric. We had we always seem to have dye days at my house in July. And I know everybody like that's here is like from around, you know, the country or the world. July in Northern Alabama, is a time.
It is literal. It is quite literal hell.
It is very. But for some reason, we always do it in July. Like a Saturday or Sunday in July to do it. We put up the pop-up tents on my driveway and dyed fabric and played with some batik and other sort of shibori techniques to make some fun stuff. And so I'm glad that I had people who could come, and Anula and Gwenvin came to help me out with that. We had some fun chatting with each other, distancing, while we were dying, distance dying. Distance dying. But yeah, so. But and I knew that I couldn't do it by myself. So my husband does not play in the STA. Totally cool. Like I am one of the people who's, the whole like, oh, if you don't play together, it's not gonna. No, it's fine. We have a wonderful marriage. We've been married for, I lost count because time has no meaning, over 10 years, a long damn time. And it's fine. But I knew that I needed external support, like in person, based on the conversations I've had with people. Like I needed somebody to do tech support. I needed somebody to, if I'm stuck in front of the camera, even just for my vigil, I need someone who can like bring me food so that I don't, pass out, things like that. So,
well, these are things that are, so looking at a regular vigil, right? These are things you need there. So like that didn't change for you, right? Even though it was done on camera, you still had to have that support structure. Yes, definitely. You didn't need your guards became virtual guards, right? People getting led into the breakout room in Zoom. Right. But somebody bringing you food and water, that's a thing you need at a real elevation or a real vigil versus a virtual vigil. So yeah, that didn't change. Yeah, but I didn't do it at my house. I went to Gwenvin and Connell's house, and they're like, 40 minutes down the road from me. And we just made a day of it. I went there in the morning. They set me up in their gazebo. And again, Northern Alabama, in mid-November, you can be outside. Right. It's a little chilly, maybe. But it was fine. I mean, they made the gazebo gorgeous, and I sat out there. They sat in the covered porch, and so we were like shouting at each other back and forth. Who needs Zoom chat? You can just shout across the backyard. But yeah, I mean, like you said, all of those normal things. We got ready in the house, and then came out there, and it worked well. I got bao. I got to eat bao, which made me happy. Little steamed buns, which are my favorite.
Steamed
buns and dumplings are my favorite part of Asian cultures. Like that's just anything in a dumpling is just the best.
So, and I do love that there's a picture book that we got recently. This is off topic, and I'm sorry, everybody. But it's about an interfaith, a mixed culture family, that's Jewish and Chinese, and the two grandmas and how they make dumplings. And you've got one that's very Ashkenazi Jewish dumplings, and then you have the Chinese dumplings, and then they make soup together, and it's dumpling soup. There's nothing, it's just dumpling soup. But it's a combination of these two cultures, and it just makes me happy. So
I need that book.
Dumplings are so cross-cultural. Here's some dough, and we put stuff in it. Eat. So.
All right, so we have some questions coming in actually about your vigil. So let's hit on the vigil for a few minutes. So when was your vigil in relation to your actual elevation?
So because we had to do it in one day, because I didn't want to leave my husband with my two small children, who I have a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old. I didn't want to leave him alone with my two small children. He's a wonderful dad and a great parent, for more than a day. I wanted to treat it like if this was, pre-pandemic times, I went to an event, I leave at, 8 in the morning. I come back at about, 8 at night. I'm gone for 12 hours. So we did it in one day. So I had my vigil, I think started at maybe 10 in the morning. I don't remember when my vigil started.
It was 10ish. Yeah, it was before 1. Yeah.
Yeah, it went for a couple hours. It went for maybe 3 or 4 hours. And then we took like an hour or 2 off for us to get ready and eat dinner and everything. And then court, I think, was maybe at 4 or 5. I know it was dark.
Yeah, usually courts are 5 or 6 because courts are usually in Eastern times, which usually they usually 7 o'clock Eastern time, so it'd be 6 o'clock our time.
Right. Okay. And that makes sense. Yeah, because it was already dark.
Their majesties are in the future, so we have to answer them. Okay, so your vigil was 3 or 4 hours long, and you just did that via Zoom. Is that correct?
Yep, it was just via Zoom. So, my vigil was not. I'm sorry, my vigil was not live streamed. Right. So, we used there was like a reading room that you initially would go into, and then there was a breakout room where I was. So we didn't live stream my vigil because and this is just my own personal feeling. Again, talking to, Mistress Elsif and other people who had virtual vigils and elevations, I wanted people to know that their comments would be private. I did record it for my own purposes. My plan is to take the vigil book that Mistress Margavati made me and take notes on what people said to me so that I have that. And then I had a virtual vigil book that, like a guest book that people could sign. But I wanted those comments to be private. That was something that an analog of a physical vigil that I wanted to do, because I understood, because I think Mistress also, she live streamed her vigil, and people enjoyed seeing that sort of behind the curtain, what does this look like? And that worked for her. I wanted it to be a little bit more intimate in that it was private. Anybody could go to the link and come see me, but we didn't live stream it. We did live stream court, obviously.
Yeah. So and we're gonna so let's focus on the other things. I think there's some good things there. Okay, so with the video, so the vigil wasn't live stream, and I guess let me sum up the technical portion of this, because the questions are being asked here. Okay, so it was done via Zoom, and in Zoom you have the option to do when the main room comes in, that's used as sort of the waiting room or the outside of the tent part, and there's somebody in there that's controlling access. And then and this, I've seen this in yours and in Veronica's was the same way, and I'm assuming that Song Myung Soo is going to be the same way. They're in a breakout room. The person controlling it usually, like we have Mistress Ellen, who's our amazing person.
Props to Mistress Ellen and her team. They are amazing. Yeah. They are.
Like I know how to use StreamYard, and I know how to use Zoom. Yeah. Ellen takes Zoom, like she needs to have a Laurel in Zoom. She needs to be a Zoom Laurel. Is that a thing we can do? Because good God, that woman knows what she's doing.
She is. Yeah. And she does most of our courts. She has a team of people. It's not just her.
Yeah. But she's the puppet master, man. She knows how to. She bends Zoom to her will. Anyway, so then she was controlling in and out of. You get 5 minutes per person, and there's a way to message the people, so it pops up. So you've got 2 minutes left or whatever. It was super smooth when they did it for Veronica's. It was super clean. So so the advice to people in the audience is if you're being elevated and you need a vigil, find somebody who can run that technically for you. And if you need help with that, reach out to Ellen DeLacy in Meridia's, or reach out to any of the Meridian virtual court team, and they can get you connected to those people, because they can. Whereas they may not be able to do it for you, they can at least advise you how to do that. I see the question. So Ellen DeLacy, and I will link that. I'll post that on my page in a little bit here. Or just reach out to the Kingdom of Meridia's page on Facebook, and they can
paging Ellen DeLacy, and then
come to the Kingdom of Meridia's discussion group, and I'll throw those links out on the page afterwards. All right, so next question was about your virtual vigil book. So you had a physical one that Margavati made for you. Yes. What was your virtual one like? What did they use for that?
I think it was a Google Docs.
It was a Google form, wasn't it?
Yeah, like a form, yeah. And it was what kingdom are you from, and your name, and I think I had an optional form email. I think I had email just for not spam, as a spam protection thing. But and then just a big text block. What would you like to say? Yep. And I had it open actually before my virtual vigil. It was open for a week or two, maybe. It was linked in the vigil event, and then I closed it after my actual vigil was over. Because I'm sorry, I'm looking at the comments yes, that Ellen DeLacy. Got it. I closed it after my actual vigil was over, so that it would again mirror when a vigil book would be available, yeah. Other than it was available before my actual vigil started. So yeah,
which honestly not a bad plan, realistically. Sort of, put the vigil starts at noon, put the book out, that morning, so people can come by early if they need to. That's because so being the non-peer in the room and person who is, I am even less close to where than you thought you were on your path. I am nowhere near to any of the paths currently.
You got that pretty long list of awards there, though, man. I mean, don't discount yourself.
But they're all divided. I have one service and one arts, and then I have two separate service awards and two separate barriers. Okay,
but see, that's the thing is that's the whole fallacy that it's not all interconnected, because everybody looks at everything.
Right, so, that's true. That's true. Yeah. so I've just now started considering those things and like, oh, what do I want to do about that? You know, because apparently you're supposed to do that. I didn't know that. I've recently experienced the in case of elevation document.
Yes. Oh gosh, yes. Your in case of peers document is so important.
Yeah, didn't know. My peer has yet to beat that into me apparently. So my peer is fairly new peer, so she's not used to having students yet. I mean, she's she just got elevated midwinter last year.
She was elevated the same event that Veronica got announced.
Right, that's right. That's true. Yeah.
Event that Meridia's had. Yes.
Yeah. So she's and whereas she's been around for years, and she has Mistress Leda, who's been a Laurel for a bit. So like she's not unfamiliar with the whole idea of peerage, but she did, and she also approaches it a little differently, which is why her and I get along well, because her path is one of those we're just doing stuff we makes us happy, and if we get elevated, cool, whatever.
Yeah.
You're my peer. We're doing this. Let's make this happen. I actually drove. So that's funny. So I've actually only been a protege since COVID because again she got elevated and then we went into lockdown. I actually drove 6 hours to get my belt, and like
I remember that. Yeah, I remember you posting.
Yeah, we were like belt, got it. That was the weirdest thing. Like masks on, and like I had the rest of the household on Zoom on a tablet over here. It was bizarre, but it was important to me that I go get it. Like she was just gonna mail me my belt, and I was like, no, I have to have this at least from your hand by proxy. But it's important, if you can't put it on.
Okay, but speaking of belts, right. So there's a bit in my elevation ceremony where I had the legacy belt. Like my Laurel had a belt made for me that was more appropriate for Tang Dynasty. This just really narrow woven silk band, which is super long. I wrap it around myself twice. But I also had the legacy belt from Master Allen, and I actually wore that during my vigil because I dressed in scholar's clothes for my vigil, dude garb. Which would be more appropriate with the leather belt. And so there was a part in my vigil where I tried to give it back to her, or in my elevation where I attempted to give it back to her, and she's like, no, you keep it for what the down the road when you take your own apprentices.
Right.
Because I wanted to include legacy means a lot to me. Like I'm part of a chain. I'm part of a tree, and I didn't want to. Especially being virtual, I didn't want to be cut off from that, because I wasn't going to have the situation where all of the Laurels are, called up into court and all standing around me while this is happening, right? So I was very, very lucky, I had it at Gwenvin and Connell's house, but, my Laurel was there with me. Gwenvin, who was or is my Laurel's apprentice sister, was there. Aelgafu, sorry, there's too many starts with ale names and readers. I was like, not Chantel. Aelgafu was there, and Bart, who actually had just moved to Huntsville. I didn't know if they're like, who's going to be there physically? Like, I think it's these people, but I don't know.
Count Bartholomew Illyria, by the way.
Yes. He had just moved back to Alabama and is not quite my neighbor. But so he showed up physically, we did our best to stay, masked and distance and all that. But I was very happy to have my household with me, in my house, as much as my household as I could, and in Meridia's, the Laurel house, if you can call Laurel's households, they're very amoebic because, we're all related to Mistress Roz, like literally most
everybody, every Laurel in Meridia is related to Roz somewhere.
Everyone's related to Mistress Roz.
She's like Zeus, and she just spawned Laurels from her head, I think.
She is our grand dame. She is our Maggie Smith. I hope she would appreciate that analogy or that comparison. But it was the best that I, to have those people with me and have those items, the bell and Johannes's wreath and everything.
I didn't know that was Johannes's wreath.
We couldn't put it on because my hairpiece was too wide. I love Faye, who, Phaedra from East Kingdom made my hairpiece for me, but it was a little bit too wide for it to go on, but I held it in my hands while I took my oath, after my oath, or my pledge. It was not an oath, my pledge. Sorry.
But that's honestly, that's an important distinction for people with religious exceptions and things like that. Oaths and pledge mean a big thing. I know Wu and I have had a long talk about that because she has the issue of taking oaths and things and there's a lot in in the SCA and Meridian specifically, that's those oaths of fealty and the Legion of the Bear oath and the peerage oath, that it's a big deal if you can't do that, right? And it takes,
and I have been, and I've served as a kingdom officer before, and I've always been very blessed to, I've never come up against royals who have said, hey, when I do this, I need to, and I always do it privately. And I think I did it once via email. Like, I need to do this differently. I need to give you a pledge. This is my pledge. And it follows along the same lines, to service and counsel. But it's, I'm sorry. I need to be a little bit more specific here. I'm Jewish. And there is a, I don't know how to describe it. You're not supposed to swear oaths in Judaism because breaking an oath is super bad.
Right.
And so in order to avoid breaking an oath, you don't make them. So instead, I pledge. And there's actually in the North Shield Book of Ceremonies, when they end the sort of repeat after me, I hereby swear fealty or pledge service.
Ooh,
they have it built in, so that you can just, because that's the other thing too, is
I'm going to do that
as it is, because I do a pledge, not an oath. I wouldn't be able to, once we're able to be in person and have, all the laurels go up together kind of thing, like a coronation.
Right.
I wouldn't be able to do that because I can't follow those same words.
Right.
So it's arguably a semantic difference, but it means it's different. It means something different.
But admittedly, we could go off on a whole tangent about how religion is a semantic thing. Yeah. So
words matter. Words matter. So
exactly, words matter, and that's okay. So pledge and oath, from what I have talked to people about, the difference is they can say, "I pledge to help you do X, Y, Z." Right? And I'm just saying, I'm going to do my best to do this thing for you, whereas I swear I'm going to do it is a guaranteed I have to do it. That's the difference from what I understand from sort of the people who make that distinction, and that tracks. So I think that's a thing of. So me personally, I don't mind swearing oaths of fealty. I don't mind swearing oaths because there's actually, I separate the character and the person. So my oath of fealty for me that's Kalbardr swearing an oath of fealty, not Richard, my mundane persona swearing, right? So there's a bit of separation, but I know I also don't have that religious, I'm not going to call it a problem, but I guess restriction would be the proper word. I don't have that religious restriction on it, so it doesn't, something I have to consider.
Right.
But yeah, so that's the thing. I've had lots of talks about that with Wu and a couple others, because it's a point of contention, especially in this kingdom, because of and that's not, I'm not talking shit on Radiates, but we have a couple of extra oath things in our like in our grand orders that come up as well. So yeah, it's a thing. So yeah, okay.
I mean, the royals that I have in my time here that I've talked to about it, where I've had to do that, have always been like, oh no, that's totally fine. Not a big deal. Like, it's never been an issue. Right. Never been an issue.
Yeah. I've never seen it personally be an issue, but
I would love to see us adopt something like what North Shield has, I hereby swear fealty or pledge service. But I mean, if we don't ever, it's not a big deal. I know to reach out and ask.
Right.
But not everybody feels like they have that ability or that they're comfortable necessarily doing that. If you told a new person, a new person who, for whatever religious reasons, couldn't swear an oath, oh, hey, this is happening. There's that, oh gosh, I can't do that. This isn't a place for me, whereas it's like, no, just go ask them, but because new person, they're not necessarily going to know that door is open.
Right. So that's something, and you should send that to their majesties. Honestly, I would make that recommendation, because that may be a thing that they've never considered.
I would probably send it to Beacon first, because it's a heraldry thing. In the sense of like voice heraldry. So probably send it to Beacon first, and then pass it up the line that way. But yeah,
that's something we should do. We'll talk about that. All right. So changing kingdoms, yay!
Kingdom anthropology.
Like DEI is a thing, and we need to, if that's small, that's 3-word change.
Yeah.
That is a huge difference for some people.
Mm-hmm.
That's an easy change to make, and they've already their majesties already they took the oath and made it because it ends in oath breaking with justice,
right,
versus oath breaking with vengeance.
Yeah,
for them, justice was more important than vengeance, and that
sends a signal, because words have words mean things. Words have power, and that's Yeah.
Yep.
There's a big difference between justice and vengeance. So
yeah, especially when they made that change where we were as a kingdom and where the SCA was.
Yep.
It was a big deal. It was a very. They didn't make a huge deal out of it, but I noticed it. It was.
But that's the thing.
Difference.
Notice you don't have to blow trumpets and make a big fanfare about it and like over explain why you're doing it, but people notice and they get it.
Yeah. All right. So this is the problem. I knew like you were all like worried about what are we going to talk about. I was like, we're going to talk. This is it. We're just going to jabber for an hour.
Okay. I told them, I was like, I'm gonna have a coffee talk. It'll be fine.
Coffee talk, yeah.
Coffee talk
from Boston. All right, so let's talk about tech for a second, and we'll kind of get back into some of the logistics of your actual like the in-person stuff. So tech for the elevation. This is sort of the Meridier's model for elevations. They have this down. They understand how to do this, but it's all done via Zoom. So everybody comes into the Zoom room. It's actually they usually do court and then they do an elevation. Sometimes they'll break them up. It's yours was done as part of regular court, wasn't it?
Yes. Like, I think there was only one other piece of business. I think Gwenthan got her pillar. No, it was a cup thing. I'm so bad.
The chalice. Yeah, they did the chalice. Yeah, that's right. Which I think was they snuck that in.
Oh no, yeah, no, she didn't know. Yeah. Like, obviously, like it was funny.
Yeah, we've had a lot of those recently. Did you? You may have seen it. Sir Eric, the Knight of Kittens, was actually announced on his own show. Like that was the best. Like the screenshot of his face was priceless. So yeah, he was announced for the Order of the Pelican recently.
We've been able to do some really fun things with announcements and whatnot using Zoom, live, whether that's been a meeting or live streams or whatever. We've been able to do some really cool things and make it still special.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah. Who was it? Lady Jane Wolfton was announced recently. I'm sorry, the Honorable Lady Jane Wolfton was announced, and literally people just showed up at her house with a like her peer showed up with a tablet with court running on it already, and just said, "Hey, how's it going?" And like walked into her house with it, and she's like, "What?" Like she wasn't even invited to court, and I was like, first of all, I will hit somebody if they ever do that to me. Just I'm putting this out there. No. Okay. Now that I've said that, we're good. I hate surprises.
But it's part of it is knowing your person.
Right. It's who knows the associate. She knew that was okay for them. And like she had people there, like who was it? The people she lives with, I forget their names now. Nicholas and that crowd. They were all there and like he already had Zoom prepped on his computer.
Yeah.
Turned off. Like, so they knew she didn't know.
Yeah.
Please don't ever. I hate surprises. Don't do that to me ever.
For the record, Cal does not want to drive by.
Yeah, don't drive by. I want to send me a letter ahead of time. Let me know it's coming. Yeah, I don't. Which I'm actually, admittedly, so to talk about virtual courts in general for a second, I've really enjoyed the idea of virtual courts and having the list put out ahead of time.
Yeah.
Because like you said, it's always that stress of I have an inkling something might happen and then it doesn't, and that's hurt.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a letdown. It's not like it's not like that. It's like it's just you jazz yourself like, oh, maybe, and then oh no, it didn't happen. Like maybe I'll get cookies like today. Like someone will bring, but no, I didn't get cookies. Like, oh, that sucks. And
every court I go to, I have that feeling. Every court, regardless of whether I should get like I literally just got an award yesterday. The new court, I feel like my brain goes, give me more of the brain drugs.
Well, because it's a dopamine rush. It's a thing, that validation that, yeah, you're doing a good job. Keep going, keep doing the thing, and you need that cheerleading, which is why it's so important to have that support network that can cheerlead you between those big hits. Right. You need to celebrate you need a group to celebrate the small wins in between the big wins. Because otherwise you can run out of steam really fast. So
speaking of a small win, good watching. Don't forget to push that like button down there and subscribe on YouTube. That gives me the good brain drugs.
Yay!
Subscribe buttons. Okay.
Everybody, more serotonin.
That's right. Okay. So the virtual for us elevations are everybody goes into a Zoom, and then the Zoom team people they live stream it out to the Kingdom Facebook. That's the technical side of it.
Yep.
Now, from your side, what was your cameras, mics? What was your technical?
So we were in the gazebo in Gwenthan and Connell's backyard, which is a lovely backyard.
Right. It was gorgeous. Like just
they put all these hangings up. I mean, and they put rugs down, but there was tape on the floor. Like this is where I was going to be, this is where my speaker was going to, the people who were there in person, where they're going to be. We had a ladder in the gazebo with me that had a gooseneck, like one of those flexible gooseneck phone holders on it, and a phone. So I'm literally like, when you see, I'm looking up, like on the because it's recorded, on that, I'm looking up at this phone screen at the top of a ladder. And then there was a laptop on like a TV table, like a TV tray table, in the opening of the gazebo. So there we had like the two views going on, and I don't know what magic Ellen did to switch between those at any given time.
She was so if you both videos are just in the Zoom as people, and she can pin the video back and forth.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. So we had two, just so we could have those two perspectives.
It's basically the same thing when I go, look, it's Ouyang.
Oh,
look, it's me. It's the same thing, yeah.
And I think I only ever looked at the phone, or I only looked at the laptop when they showed my scroll.
Oh yeah.
So I turned and I looked at that and my banner, which Gwen made, and it's so
beautiful. That banner, yeah. She is knocking the banner out of the park, man.
She's something else, man. I love that gal. Anyway, and it was funny too because it's Countess Laurel Gwen, and Rudy also has a Countess Laurel Gwen. You're like, no, not that one, the other one.
We have so many Countess Laurel Gwens around, yeah.
There are three, I think. Yeah. I think there are three. Because we have one, Northshield has one, and is there maybe one in the West? I don't know.
Probably.
It's not my job to keep track of them. I'm only responsible for one. So
wrangling laurels is not your task. That's a Pelican job.
No. Well, and I'm arguably only responsible for the one because she's a leg wife. So anyway.
Which, by the way, don't ask about the leg wives. That's a whole story. That's another day.
They're my two best friends. Okay, my two best female friends. That's what they are. But no, I was reflecting on it ahead of our chat today, and I was like, yeah, there was a ladder with a phone on it, and we had extension cords so that we can make sure everything was plugged in, because Zoom is really power hungry, especially on mobile devices. So we were just really, really sure, made sure that everything was plugged in, everything had power, we were going to run out. But yeah, just a phone on a ladder, on a really tall ladder.
Yeah. So you just had it was the two cameras, right? Just the one, the laptop and the phone. Yeah. So yeah. So I think Veronica, when she did hers, there were three. I think she had one on her, she had one on her speakers, and then she had like a
combined,
like a wide shot.
Yeah.
Kind of thing that had her and the thing, and then they also had one of her vigil table or her food in her vigil. They had a shot.
Oh my god, that was so great! Great.
We won't talk about the phallic eggplant that was there, but there was a phallic eggplant that was intentionally put there.
There was a whole debate in the sort of party room, the waiting room, about whether or not the food was real.
Oh, it was.
Because it looked like a painting. It looked like this Italian Renaissance.
I won't say my household had anything to do with that, but it might have. So not my sister directly, my sister via household association. The apprentice sister to my protege. They're the ones that did the vegetable food, and she's like, "Yep, that's a phallic eggplant. We're putting that right there." That was the thing she did.
Speaking of feasts, though, and this is something that we did not do. So our plan, and it's still the plan, FYI, is to host a revel, or to sponsor a revel once we're able to, meet space again. Yeah. That is a Tang Dynasty revel, which is completely period for Tang Dynasty. So we were basing everything off of a scholar being, passing exams and being promoted or brought into the Chinese sort of officer bureaucracy.
Right. The civil service exam.
The civil service exams, you have proven yourself worthy, and therefore now you have this position. You have this job now. Because it was very important to me, because peerage is a job. Right. It's dopamine, it's a cookie, but no, it's a job. You have responsibilities. Right. You have meetings to go to and stuff.
Hold on. You have meetings you get to go to. You have meetings you get to go to. Not
you get to go to them, but you do though. You do. If you don't go to so many meetings in a row, you can't vote until you start going again. There's bylaws.
Okay, no, hold on. You're right. But let me. It's a words that matter. Words have meaning thing.
Yes.
So when I hear people say, "Oh man, I've got to go to this meeting tomorrow," No,
that's how I mean
get to go to
that's
this meeting tomorrow.
yeah, exactly. That's not. Yeah, I don't mean it like it's not a burden. It's
Right.
It is a privilege
Right.
to have this position for sure. And a privilege that I'm very, very thankful for and humbled to have been given. But no, I wanted that analog because that's how I view peerage, and
Sure.
it worked for what my focus is. So, what was I talking? Oh, I didn't have the feast, but it is completely period to after the presenting the new scholars, the new officers to the emperor. You go have a party, and like you go have a party. So the plan is to still have that party at some point, and there will be food there. But one of the thing, Song is doing it. And I think I saw somebody else did it too. But releasing the Vigil Feast cookbook.
Oh yeah.
I love that idea because how often have you been at either a feast or a vigil and there's been some amazing food and you're like, this is awesome. I want to know more. And but that person who made that is not here or not accessible. I love the idea of packaging it together into, a digital little file. Right. Here's the cookbook. And so, we can't meet in person. You can't eat this food with us physically, but you can make it yourself and have it and be part of it that way. That was so cool. Yes. Sorry, I'm looking at chat. Tom drinking games. Yes. Yes.
Analects of the Jade. Yeah.
It will happen. I want to figure out the one. I have the lots one where you pull them out of the jar, the jade candle. I want to figure out the one that's basically like a fishing game.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. I remember. Yeah, Analects of the Jade Candle, the one we didn't live stream early on in the.
We did not.
We got silly. That was a fun silly night. I enjoyed that. But yeah. So that's a thing. So that's the one thing I think we're missing right now is we're missing a lot of those parties after the vigil or after the elevation. And I suspect we will have our first 5 or 6 months of SEA events will just be parties. We're gonna forget the rest of this. Like we're gonna no meetings, no nothing. We're gonna have parties with a little bit of party.
It's one of those weird things with the whole ESCA thing. There's been conversations about how the digital format for some of this stuff works really well, and when we do go back to being in meet space, how much of the ESCA will we just sort of fold in? People always say back to normal. It's not going to go back.
It's new normal. Yeah, we will have a new normal.
It's going to be a new normal. And what do we bring from this learning experience? Because that's what it is. What do we bring from this learning experience with us into that future and fold into that new normal? So we'll see.
All right. So the question came up, and we'll circle back to it. So you talked about there were decorations and people. So you sort of had things. What of that? Give me the better of what made that special to you? Because like obviously you had a ladder with a camera on it, you had a laptop, and those detract, right? So those take away from the I'm sitting here in a Tang Dynasty palace. Like that's which is the goal. I think the goal is always the how can I be in this period space with this ladder and phone. So what did you do to sort of bring you into that? Yeah.
So Ilgafu and Gwenvin and Una did an amazing job draping the gazebo with some gauzier fabric. There was this big iron couch that they had like draped in like a red fabric, sort of to hide the fact that it was this big iron, patio
right.
couch. And they had gotten some, I think from Spoonflower maybe, or because Joanne's does a fabric printing thing now too. They had gotten some fabric printed that one had laurel leaves on it, the wreaths and some other things just to sort of just dress the space up. It was definitely different than having like being in a pavilion kind of thing, but it worked, and honestly, my focus was not so much on, once it got started, my focus was not really on the physical at all. It was more on like the moment and what is happening. Sure. I was super nervous like before it went live. Like I was like trying not to hyperventilate. I was like, I'm going to say something. I'm going to screw something up. Baroness Katarynka, Mug Katarynka, wrote my ceremony. I'm going to love on my person for a minute. She has written so many elevation ceremonies and scroll texts based on extant documents. She's amazing at it. She has written Norse or Anglo-Saxon ceremonies. She's written, later period like English. She's amazing. And so I literally threw a bunch of stuff at her. I was just like, here, figure it out.
I want this ish go, right?
Yeah, because I didn't have enough brain juice to like do it myself. And I didn't really want to do it myself. You know, like I wanted that to be part of what she gave me because she is so skilled at it. And she wrote such an amazing ceremony, and I was terrified that I was going to screw something up. And I didn't even talk that much. You know, but,
a lot of yours is yes.
Yes. Baroness Katarinka, she's in North Shield. She is amazing. And Cal, I'll give you the link to her. I think she has like a Tumblr blog where she posts all of her texts. I'll give it to you so you can add it later to things. She's awesome, and I love her. And this is just awesome. Anyway, so I was so nervous, and Ilgafu was like doing the whole breathe, like walking me, you know, trying to get me to calm down. And yeah, but once it started and I was in that moment and I was just so hyper focused on that little phone and the people and what was being said and all of that. So yeah, it was a rush. And again, I can't compare it to what it would be like doing it physical because I've just never had a period before.
Right. This is your first. So I'm trying to think what I lost a question. I had a thing. Nope, gone forever. Oh well. Okay. Is there something you would have done differently? Looking back now, what's the or if you don't answer that, what was there a thing that went wrong, a bad thing? What was the bad of this? Because we've talked about a lot of the good. Where was the bad?
I mean, I drove like 40 minutes to Decatur to Gwendolyn's house, and then immediately had to turn around and go home because I forgot my elevation garb at home.
Got it. That's a thing, yeah.
Which and I had to put her because she was only 40 minutes away.
Exactly. You were 40 minutes, not 4 hours away where you would have been in an event. So yeah.
Like if I had got to go to like Atlanta or something, like, nope, I just don't have elevation garb. Here we go.
Yeah.
I can't think of anything that was really bad or that didn't go well. I mean, I had an amazing support team, and they oh my gosh. And I mean, and a team that's been playing this game for decades. I mean,
honestly, we should have had one of them on to tell you what actually went bad, because I'm sure things did, and so that's an important thing to note right now. You didn't see any of it.
I didn't see any of it. And I mean, it would have been lovely to have been in a pavilion. I mean, the gazebo was beautiful. Don't get me wrong. The gazebo was perfectly great. But seeing later what Veronica did on her porch, she did it on her porch. She basically set her pavilion up on her porch. And I was like, oh, that looks so cool. But I think that but I mean, you see that even in physical stuff, you know, like you see what somebody else did, you know, like, oh, that's so cool. I wish I had thought of that, you know, but that's part of the iterative nature of our game and our process, you know, and what we learn from each other. So, no, I didn't see anything that went wrong. My butt went a little numb in my vigil, but I have heard that that's not uncommon.
Right. There's a lot of sitting. Yeah.
You know, when you sit still, you know, sit in one spot for, 3 to 4 hours, it's a thing.
You weren't like kneeling through yours like I've seen people do. So.
Oh God, no. I was sitting on a couch. You know, I had cushions and everything, but I tried to get up and walk around a little bit. But no, I had an amazing support team, and like you said, if something went wrong, I didn't see it.
Yeah, I think that's important. So that's your step one. So I guess the advice takeaway is have a good support team. If you don't have one, find one. If you can't find one, reach out to your royals, reach out to your peer. Tell them, oh God, I'm panicking. I can't do this. Help me. That's
a really good point, actually, because if I remember correctly, Mistress Anna, who is now Anna, who got Laurel in Chimeras, I think she's back all the way in the east now. I'm not sure where
the Byzantine.
Yeah. But she was originally, I think, just going to have it at her house, and then somebody was like, "No, you're not. Come over here."
Right.
And they had it in the backyard, in a pavilion.
That's another good point. Was that different? I think that makes it better. Mm-hmm. Is that even though you were at somebody's house, you weren't at your house.
Yeah.
So it took you out of your space a little bit and gave you that, ooh, I'm going somewhere. Even though it's 40 minutes down the road,
Yeah.
it was still a new space for you.
Right.
And so I'd be curious to talk to like Veronica or Sam when she does hers, because they're both doing theirs at their house, right? So that may be different.
But okay, so they're doing it at their house, and the same thing with Ellis if she did it at her house, but they made a space.
Right, exactly. Yeah, you still established that space.
Still made a separate space, and that was where it was going to be. So I think even if you have it at your own house, I didn't have it at my house because again, my husband doesn't play. I have 2 small kids, and I didn't want to put that burden on them.
Right.
Of bringing people in who, you know, I didn't want to do that to them.
Zippy would have been in your lap the entire time.
Oh gosh, she would, and she would have loved it. But it would have, and I love my child. I love my child. And I know, like, you know, don't apologize for your kid coming in on a Zoom call. It's like, okay, yeah, but it stresses me out.
Right.
You know, like, I know y'all don't care. Y'all love her. I love her too. But when you're trying to do a thing, it's just, So yeah, it was good to have that space. And if someone is considering whether or not to do their elevation virtually or not, you know, which, you know, what's the newest thing is we're pushed out till what was it?
June.
June?
Yeah, June 1st, right now.
Again, an honor delayed is an honor denied. Right. But make a space. If you're doing it at your house, put your pavilion up in your backyard. You know, take your guest room and put cloth up and make a space. I don't want to be. I'm trying to think how to phrase this. We get something when we separate. You know, it's the whole difference between. The only analogy I can think of is, you know, the difference between sacred and profane, you know? But it's this whole, when you make a separate space for something, you attach meaning to it. Right. When you have that shelf that your knickknacks go on, you know, those special knickknacks, you know, you are separating those from something else, you know, that coffee cup lives there as opposed to in the cabinet. You are separating it off. You are attaching meaning to it. Right. So I think it's very important to, you know, it would have been a very different experience had I done my vigil in the office, in my house, where I do all of my Zoom meetings.
Well, it sort of caters back to the idea of when people started going virtual. I mean, I've worked remote before, so like I knew how to do remote work, so it was nothing new for me. A lot of people who had never done that didn't understand that they needed a workspace. Yeah. They working at your dining room table in the middle of where you live every day is bad, because then there's no disconnect between work and home. Right. But if you move it to a back office, a back area, somewhere separate, so that when you're done, you can close that and walk away, it gives you that same thing. It's the same idea, right? Right. That's a negative thing versus anything.
Well, and I mean, this is our home office. My husband has a consulting business, and this is when he does that. He comes into this office and he closes that door. And the kids are supposed to know that they're little, they're learning that when those doors close, Daddy's not home. Right. Like Daddy's
at work. Yeah.
You know, he is at work. Don't bother him. But they're little. They're learning. We'll get there. All
right. So since your elevation, so how long have you been? When was your elevation? How long ago?
So this is actually really funny. So I was announced in mid-May, and I was elevated in mid-November. So I spent 6 months.
Which that's not atypical though. That's pretty. For an elevation, that's pretty good, actually.
Not too, but I mean, it was a rush at the end because again, I didn't have elevation checks of fabric. I had to like get all that ordered. I had to, you know, and I had amazing artisans and friends who crafted things, beautiful things, to make my day special. You know, my hairpiece, my pins, all that. Oh my gosh, it's beautiful. But still, I still got that rush of I gotta get the thing done.
I remember you and I talked a couple times during that. I was like, chill, calm down. It's coming together. You're fine.
Lots of audiobooks and stitching in bed. Right. The thing done.
So how has being a virtual Laurel been since then? What's your virtual Laurel career started like?
I actually did a thing where I have the goal to like always post once a month on my blog. And after my elevation, I wrote a post that was like, okay, this happened. This is really cool. I'm gonna go process, and basically took off from after my elevation through the end of December. Because again, I'm Jewish. we had holidays, you know, it was just, I need to spend time with my kids. My Zippy turned 3. So I did lots of art for my children and for me, you know, because you spend a lot of time when you're in the bubble, when you're in the fishbowl, everything is, how does this affect my journey? How is this one more step on my path? And so I felt like I had, if going with the journey metaphor, I'd reached an inn. I'd reached a waypoint, not a stopping point.
Yeah, it's a waypoint, yeah.
A waypoint, and I could rest. And so I took that rest. And I'm very glad that I did. I've only been to one Laurel meeting. But
you have been to a couple of like we've done some discussions around like judging things recently that you've showed up to, and you know, being the new Laurel in the room, actually you've jazzed some new Laurel energy into the room, which I've really appreciated seeing you like, no, look, I'm gonna flip this table over. We're talking, folks.
Nah, yeah. I hope not too. I don't want to. Okay, so before my elevation, it factored into what I gave her as a gift. My Laurel Una would always say, I would give her a heads up, like, hey, by the way, I'm about to go do this thing, or I did this thing, and you should just know about it before you hear about it. You know?
always warn your peers when you're gonna flip the table.
Your peers when shenanigans happen. But it was just like, I'm about to go like off on this person. No, not like that, but like I'm about to like make my opinion known about this, and just I want to let you know what's going on. And her response was always, okay, go make waves. Go make waves. I was like, okay, not rock the boat, but make waves.
Right.
You know? And so but again, one of the things that you hear, I think probably most often in a vigil is the whole, you know, like we've already said in this chat, words have power, words matter. And that is even more so true when you have that, whatever title you choose, tacked on the end of your name, you know, or that OL. Your words carry more weight. You have a louder megaphone.
Right.
And so if I've noticed anything post elevation, I have noticed that, especially in our ESCA world, I will read something and I will go, and I'll start to write a comment and I'll be like, you know what? No, I don't need to say anything. I can just sit here. Whereas before I felt like I'd have to weigh in, you know? Right. But there have been several occasions where I'll be like, no, I don't need to say anything that hasn't already been said. So I can just sit here and, you know, maybe like some comments, but I'm good.
Yeah. Well, it's because you have, and this week you have nothing to prove anymore.
I'm out of the fishbowl.
Yeah, you're out. Yeah, so you're now on the advising side of that, and right. that's interesting. I never considered that, but yeah, well, because like when I've seen you talk recently, you have had it's like I watched you go, what about this?
Yeah.
And then you just watched it, like you just kind of tossed the cookie out there and then sat back and watched. But it starts from like a discussion. So I appreciate you as a new Laurel, right? And as a younger Laurel, right? Because you brought the median age down a little bit in our kingdom.
Okay, I was gonna say, but look at the last like batch of Laurels over the last 5 years that have been made. We're all in our mid-30s.
Right. Yeah, the age is coming down a bit, and that's actually peers in general. I'm noticing Meridians, we're getting younger peers right now, which I like and I appreciate because we're getting a lot of that new blood and stuff starting to change a little bit.
It also means that the processes maybe changed a little bit. So like North Shield, and this has always been a topic of conversation in North Shield. Like it was a topic when I first joined. Right. And started playing in the SCA was how long does it take to reach this peers? Because I mean, there are people who've been playing for 20 years,
right?
You know, and so, but I mean, again, you're talking about from an inter-kingdom anthropology perspective. Thank you. When North Shield used to be part of the middle, you know, North Shield is big. It was a whole bunch
spread out, right?
Super spread out, massive land area. And so when they were part of the middle, you may not see royals for a long damn time, especially if you lived, you know, Western South Dakota, up in, you know, in Canada. I mean, just, you're not going to see people because of the breadth of land that's covered. Hell, there are people who live in that kingdom that don't make it to the other end of the kingdom,
right? You
know, during a reign. So, the conversation there was always like, what is the typical length, and, you know, and why is it different for some than others and all that jazz. So I guess from early on, I was sort of stamped with the idea of like, it takes a long time to reach this. And that's not a bad thing. Right. But then, you know, I think it was one of my first events in Meridians that Mistress Mara was announced. Mm-hmm. And I was like, Mistress Mara is like my age. Like, right. whoa, Meridians. Like, whoa.
Slow down, kids. Settle down.
You're like, this is weird. Like, I mean, she's amazing, obviously, and completely, deserving of the accolades that she has. But it was a shock for me. Like, oh, they make them young here.
Meridiers, they make them young here. That's our new motto. Put that. Make that in Latin.
Because when you grow up and you're like, oh, the person that's getting elevated is, this venerable person,
right.
Who's been doing their art or, doing their service or has been on the battlefield for 15, 20 years. That's a different perspective of peerage,
right?
Than, we need people to do the job. Not that they're not doing the job; they're doing the job.
Right.
Yeah, it's a perspective difference. It's not that; it's just different. IKA. So.
Yep. No, I agree. Yeah, we have. Somebody needs to translate "we make them young" here into Latin and make that our new. We need a new kingdom motto. So let's do that. I think that's you have just done that. That's the thing we're doing.
I don't speak Latin. It's fine.
We're making it happen.
All right.
So it is weird. I'm out of coffee. So
hold on. I don't.
That, my friends, is an empty cup. This has been lovely. So I got a couple things. We got some business to handle, and then we'll get onto that. So coming up on Kalbardrs Corner next Sunday, I'll be joined by Duke Sean and the Meridiers' own Master Sir Joffrey for Courtly Graces. So What Makes a Knight is an amazing series that I do about literally what makes a knight and the sort of the path to knighthood or path to the chivalry. And Courtly Graces is one of the things that is near and dear to my heart because I'm a gamer and I love the gaming and the dancing and the heraldry, and that's all Courtly Graces. And Joffrey is an amazing source of information for that. Then the following Sunday for the next Coffee with Cal, I'll be joined by Lady Sifa and Lady Kisa, my two lovely ladies, to talk about significant others in the SCA. So originally when I was doing this episode, I was going to name it Tight Not Taught, but nobody else would get the inside joke of I learned the difference between tight not taught by my wife teaching me how to weave.
Oh, that kind of taught. I'm like, what?
Yes, tight, not taught. So tight and taut are different. And when you warp an ankle loom, it should be taut, not tight. If you make it tight, you will bend the loom in half.
Oh,
ask me how I know. Anyways, so that's for next week. So it'll be all about how to play with significant others in the SCA and sort of how we support each other. And it's the Valentine's Day episode, so we'll be all cute and lovely and all that stuff. So tune into that. And then of course the following Wednesday, the calendars are hard. Looks like the 10th. Yes, Wednesday the 10th, we'll be joined by the casino magnate Fiken for Hounds and Jackals. It was a request. So Fiken is one of my supporters on Patreon. And he requested we play Hounds and Jackals, so I'm going to have him join me to play some games. So that's going to be fun. Last but not least, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, click all the buttons. Facebook, YouTube, look us up. We love, I need the brain drugs. Please click those buttons. And if you like what we're doing on Kalbardrs Corner or any of our affiliate channels, we now support 5 different channels, I think, right now. Maybe, and a couple others like we're doing recordings on. KK Productions is growing, and I want to help you produce your content. So if you're out there and want to produce content, and need help, need to get over that technical gap, reach out to me either on Kalbardrs Corner page or me directly on Facebook, and we will make that happen. I have the tools, I have the resources. Let me help you. But if you want to help us out other than that, look us up on patreon.com/Kalbardrs Corner, and you too can join the grand wall of patrons and get some awesome rewards and help us do this cool thing we're doing. Because this stuff costs money. Websites and streaming, that all costs money apparently. So help us do that and help us be awesome and help me support other content creators. So there's that. I happen to know somebody who might be doing a show soon. We talked about maybe. I'm going to throw her under that bus.
I don't know. Yeah.
Anyway, let's talk about that. So more shows are better. There's actually a comment in the chat about there's not enough stuff for new people and not enough connection online. We're getting that. We're getting more content out there. We're getting more stuff out there for new people.
Yeah.
There's shows like this and the Hound and Stag. I'll give them a shout out. Hound and Stag and Meridiers. Graf Ulrich and Sir Eric are doing an amazing show about some of the how culture works, how the Shiv works, how the Laurel works, how the Royals work, sort of the behind the scenes look at some of the stuff. And that's an amazing resource for new people, I think. So look that out. Hound and Stag Presents on Facebook.
I will also note that, and this is the same on Facebook groups, in comments, ask questions.
Yes.
Because if you don't know a thing, ask. And either the content creator or somebody else in the comments will point you in the right direction.
We know people.
It happens in Facebook groups all the time. Someone will ask a question and be like, oh, there's this other Facebook group for that. Here you go. And link that in. So it's one I tell people at work all the time. I can't fix it if I don't know what's broke. You got to ask the question.
Right. Yep.
To point you in the right direction. So.
Yep.
Yeah.
So if you find the Kingdom groups, find us on Facebook, look us up. We'd love to help you. So, all that being said, Ouyang, you've been a pleasure as always, my dear. And I have missed your face. We've not talked since your elevation. We haven't really talked.
I took some time.
Yeah, we've been busy, man. So I'm glad to catch up with you again. I'm glad we were able to do this, and I hope to do it in the future.
Yeah.
Everybody out there in the audience has been amazing. We love you guys. So we'll see you soon. This has been Cal and Ouyang in Kalbardrs Corner. Bye, everybody.
Bye.